Hey guys, it's your friendly neighborhood, Nature's Temper here. Anyway, I made a subreddit that you guys should check out. If you like writing, spooky horror stories, and want to submit them to me, that's the perfect place to go. And if you don't, it'd be helpful if you guys ranked them, read them, was like, this is very good, or no, don't really think this should be on the channel. That'd really help me out. Anyway, link is in the description, be nice to see you guys there. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Enjoy the story.
Hey, it's Andy again. It's been a wild last few days. I don't remember anything from Thursday. And usually I would just trust Sam's word, but I'm not so sure anymore. The last thing I remember was fleeing the hotel, and then the next thing I knew, I was waking up in a hospital bed. I could feel my arms and legs tied down to the bed. Naturally, I was concerned. Can't be in such a compromising position this week. I didn't realize that the restraints weren't the only thing that was off about my room. I was wearing my street clothes as opposed to a gown. There was no machines observing my vital signs, none whatsoever. I couldn't see much of the room since I was tied down, but to my right I could see a small table with various medical instruments on them. None of them looked very fun. There were scalpels, scissors, knives, saws, and all sorts of other shit you don't want to be around. The room was dark, apart from the small lamp to my left, which gave off an orangish-yellow glow that illuminated most of the room. At this point, I already knew what was up. This shit is too wacky not to be done by those psycho fucks from the organization. I had no idea how I was going to get out of this situation. So, naturally, I started aggressively kicking and pulling at my restraints. That didn't last long, however, as somebody entered the room. They walked over to my bed, and I nearly vomited. They were wearing the stereotypical nurse outfit, the dress, the hat, the mouth mask thingy that I'm too lazy to look up the name of. The thing that put me off was their face, or at least, the face they were wearing. I could recognize that face anywhere. How could I forget the face of my father? They weren't my father, though. They'd merely cut off his face and sewn it on top of their own, much like the Joker in the Death of the Family thing. Seeing it in person was much different than anything you would have seen in the comics. The flesh was old and rotted. Some parts started turning green and small bits of the flesh rotted more than the others, and had tiny tears in them. He grabbed a hacksaw from the table and dragged it along my forearm, making a large incision. The blood spilled out, drenching my constraints in a bright crimson. Screamed out in pain. "Something wrong, boy?" the torturer asked. I said this for a reason. It was something my father used to say if I showed any sign of distress. If I told him something was wrong, I was often met with his drunken rage. "Go to hell, you sick fuck!" I spit out at the torturer. Tears stung my eyes. Not because of the physical pain I was going through, but the emotional trauma I was re-experiencing. Seeing his face brought it all back. The memory stabbed at my brain like a knife. I could feel my anxiety surfacing. My heart raced and my stomach dropped. I started shaking and trembling. I felt powerless, like I did then. The torturer set the saw back down on the table and grabbed a scalpel. "Boy, you should be smiling. I give you so much, don't I? You have a roof over your head and food on the table, right?" They put the scalpel on the edge of my mouth. "Maybe I should make you smile, you ungrateful." "Why don't you cut the joke correct, you wannabe Leatherface?" I yelled. They abruptly stopped. I had no idea what brought me to say that. I didn't think I had the strength. Fuck that, I knew I didn't have the strength to say that. I certainly wasn't complaining, though. Wherever this was coming from was clearly pissing off the sadistic fuckbag who wears my father's face. "The fuck you say to me, boy?" "Also, you're not my dad either. You're some messed up freak who'll get what's coming to him, just like my father did." This sent him into a rage. They started screeching wildly. In their fit, they kicked over the table of sharp objects. They stopped immediately, though, as if they realized something. Slowly and carefully, they turned back to me. "He did get what was coming to him, didn't he?" I didn't know how to respond. My sudden rush of confidence was halted. It caught me off guard. The mentally unstable torturer isn't supposed to agree with you. Some would argue that what I did to him was too brutal. That it wasn't justice. That stabbing him 87 times was too much. But not you. Nah. I bet you dreamt of this ever since you were young, huh? Every night during your bedtime prayers, you prayed that someone would skin that bastard alive, right? I stayed silent. I bet you fantasized about murdering him and subjecting him to unimaginable horrors for all the shit he put you through. Really, I bet you're just jealous that you didn't get to do it yourself. I laughed maniacally. Shut up! I screamed instinctively. Oh, no, you know what? At least I admit that what I'm doing is wrong. But you still think that you're so great. You have a fancy office job and live in a cul-de-sac, but really, all that is a disguise. Secretly, you're a monster. You hide it. But just under the surface, your dark side is itching to get out. They screamed with laughter. You don't know me! Oh, I beg to differ. I know what you put that poor boy through. What was his name? Xavier. I stayed silent. And I think I know where you get that depravity from too. Maybe you aren't that much different from your father after. I shot my hand up with seemingly inhuman strength, breaking through my restraints. I grabbed the psycho by the throat. I did the same with my hands and feet, all the while choking the torturer. I stood up and threw the psycho to the ground. They hit hard. In my fury, I stomped on their throat, cracking it. I didn't have time to think. I ran for the door and entered the corridor. It was long and barren. I could see the flight of stairs at the end of the hall. I ran at full speed. I wasn't going to let some fool wearing my old teacher's nutsack on their face kill me. At the top of the stairs was a door. I slammed against it and it popped open. I found myself in the lobby of my local hospital. I slammed the door behind me and I could see that it was labeled as the janitor's closet. Before the shocked secretary could say anything, I bolted out the doors and into the street. I keep running. I passed everything, the shops, the city hall, movie theaters, people I knew on the streets, the office I worked at, several strip clubs. I didn't stop running until I got to the edge of town. I sat down and cried. I wasn't crying about anything in particular. I just needed it. It had been a shit week. I cried because I wanted my life back. I cried because I wanted to be numb again. To be just another cog in corporate America. I cried because maybe they were right. Am I just like my father? Am I doomed to repeat the sins of the father? I hadn't even thought about all of that until just now. It was almost like I had superpowers. I'd run several miles and I barely felt tired. I broke through my fucking restraints. And I hadn't died from the cutting in my arm. As soon as I thought about my arm, I looked over at it. What the fuck? The cut that had been bleeding not 40 minutes earlier was completely scabbed over. It didn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. What was going on? Basically living in a horror movie. An organization of crazy fuckwads have been chasing me all week with the promise of $10 million. Well, at first at least. And now, I have superpowers? This would be so much easier if I did drugs. I started the trek back home. I didn't run this time. I could have, but there wouldn't be much point. At least I didn't think there would be. When I finally got to my house, Sam was waiting at the door. Oh my God, honey. I'm so glad I have you back. I went to the hospital, but they said I couldn't see you. I thought. I held her close. I know. It's okay. We're gonna make it through this together. I promise. I didn't feel like doing anything else, so we just sat on the couch until we fell asleep. I had a great feeling of unease when I woke up this morning. I tried to pass it off as nothing, and I tried to distract myself by browsing Reddit. and I saw Sam's post. Damn, she is terrible at writing. I apologize to everyone on her behalf. It made me think, though. What did zombie butter knife put in my body? More importantly, what did it do to me? I sat and worried about all that through breakfast, which was awkward. Neither Sam or I felt like talking, so we just ate our fruity pebbles in silence. We're both exhausted, mostly from all the anxiety and fear that we could get murdered at any time. We said none of this, though. We just sat in silence. It was so fucking loud this morning. I couldn't think. Our next-door neighbors were finally moving in, and I suppose they needed to announce that to the entire neighborhood, because Jesus Christ, they were so loud. I never heard anybody be as loud as they were while moving. So I went upstairs, took a bunch of sleeping pills, and tried angrily to get to sleep. I was woken up several hours later by Sam shaking me. "What?" I said. "We have some visitors who really want to talk to you," she said with a worried expression on her face. "I'll update you tomorrow. Good night, guys." It's over. I need to clear some things up. I need to tell you about Xavier. When I was young, I was a terrible kid. I was the dangerous kid. The kid who would pick on anyone I deemed weaker than me. It was my way of coping with all the shit I went through. I beat on lots of people, but there was one kid in particular who I loved to bully. His name was Xavier. He was a small kid. He had red hair and a ton of freckles, and he was one of the smart kids. I don't know why I targeted him more than anyone else. I suppose he was just easy to beat on. I even had rituals for how I was going to make this kid's life a living hell. Every day at lunch I would find him and flush his lunch down the toilet. It started out with petty shit like that, but soon I escalated things. I went as far as jumping him at the bus stop when he got out. I would leave some killer bruises. He would be crawling home all bloody and broken. He never once fought back. His parents tried to get the school to do something about me, but they did nothing. Nobody cared about Xavier. Nobody looked twice when I threw him at the wall. Nobody batted an eye when I put out a cigarette on his arm. It continually got worse as time passed, but soon it all stopped. It all stopped when Xavier killed himself. I remembered the day he died. It was Saturday morning on sophomore year, and I was down at the public basket court with a few of my other lowlifes who worshipped me. We were smoking and yelling at anyone else who tried to walk into our court. Then some other kid we knew came running up to us. "Xavier's dead," he screeched at us. All hell broke loose. Everybody knew who was responsible. Everybody knew how much I tortured Xavier. Even my wannabe bully kids avoided me. I was a target now. I was beat on daily, and I deserved every hit I got. I hated myself for what I did. I still do. The only way I knew how to handle it was to create an even bigger shell around myself. I did more drugs, risked my life for dumb stuff on many occasions, and I completely isolated myself from the rest of the school. Until I met Sam. She changed everything. She showed me the light. She showed me that there was good in the world. She taught me to trust people. I started respecting my aunt and brought my grades up. By senior year, I cleaned myself up. It took me a bit longer to kick smoking, but I managed to get past even that. I still feel awful for what I did. Whenever I lay down at night, I see his face. I never forgave myself for how I treated him. How I made an effort to make him hurt. How I could have done nothing and he would be alive today. Once I started college, nobody knew what I had done. But I never forgot. I will never forget how I took the life away from a bright, young, innocent boy. I've never had to confront the people I hurt. Until yesterday. When I came downstairs, there was an elderly couple standing on the floor. I knew who they were. I took their boy from them. I would never forget the sight of Xavier's mother sobbing on my aunt's front porch as her husband screamed at my aunt and I. I will never forget the pain I had brought to them. And now, they were standing in front of me. I spent the last decade trying to run from my past, who I was back then. Now the living representation of pain I've caused were standing right in front of me. "Come in," Sam said to them. And so they did. We brought them into the living room and set them down at the chairs across from the couch where I sat. "I'll go get some chicken," Sam said before speedily walking into the kitchen. "So," Mr. Zechariah said, "where are your new neighbors?" He seemed oddly cheery as he said this. I was taken aback. They took my silence as affirmation to continue speaking. "So, how's your week been?" Mrs. Zechariah asked. "I'm sorry, what?" I said, choking slightly. "The challenge, how has it been treating you?" Mr. Zechariah said with a sly smile. How did he know about the challenge? But then it all clicked. I had figured out who Z was, and why they challenged me. "How does it feel? How does it feel to be so emotionally devastated that you can't breathe?" asked Mrs. Zechariah. It was clearly a rhetorical question. I was fucked. "Basically, you're fucked. I wouldn't worry too much about us, though. Look under your couch cushion on your right." Despite my best thinking, I looked. Under the cushion was a black envelope, torn open. Inside was a letter. "Go ahead and read it, dear," Mrs. Zechariah said warmly while smiling. I read it like so. "Dear Mrs. Jones, we challenge you to make your husband's life a living hell for the next week for $10 million. We've sent him a challenge to survive till the next week for $10 million. You win if he opts out of the challenge or kills himself. We've set aside 2 different lots of $10 million, so if he commits suicide during the week, you will receive both lots, adding up to a total of $20 million. Z." I crumpled the letter in my hands. I could feel my face get hot. My blood was boiling. Sam came in then with a tray of chicken. In my uncontrollable rage, I pulled out the handgun from my pocket and fired it at her. I shot her 6 times. She was dead before she hit the floor. "Well, shit, darling. We forgot to tell him that she didn't take the challenge, didn't we? Well, this is awkward now," Mr. Zechariah said, beginning to roll with laughter. And so I put the gun to my head and shot myself right there. I woke up on my living room floor about 3 hours ago. On my chest was a black envelope. I opened it. "Dear Mr. Jones, we thought we should clarify a few things. First of all, we sympathize with you. We know how you feel, as we accepted the very challenge you did many years ago. The challenge always ends with a grand loss. Ours was our boy, Xavier, and yours was your darling wife, Samantha. She may have made some terrible mistakes in her time, but you still loved her. You're hurting now, we can tell. You're broken. But luckily you have a second chance at life. A second chance to let the demon in you that's been building just beneath the surface to come out. A chance for the real you to shine. After our son committed suicide due to your intense bullying, the organization approached us. They gave us vaccines. You were given this vaccine just a few days ago. This is how you're alive right now. It basically stops you from dying. It heals all injuries. We didn't plan on giving you the vaccine that early, but we had miscalculated the amount of poison we gave you. We couldn't have you dying, so we had one of the organization's hitmen administer the vaccine. Now, our time here is done. We've decided to settle down in this neighborhood. to retire after completing a job well done. You are to take our place. We have left the $20 million in your kitchen. The challenge shall continue, and you will lead it. Z. I was hysterical. I had killed Sam, my soulmate, my one true love. And now some psycho fuckwads want me to join their organization of psycho fuckwads? I sat on my couch. I felt numb. I didn't have the stomach to move Sam's body. I didn't have much of a stomach to do anything, really. I had nothing left. But that didn't mean I have to throw my life away doing nothing. So I realized, after all that's happened to me, why shouldn't I redeliver my pain to someone else? For a week's pain can last a lifetime. And so this week's pain will be used to create a new life for me. As they said, the challenge shall continue, and I will lead it.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing. And if you're an animal lover like me, please consider donating to the World Land Trust, a charity that aims to help wildlife through buying land, preventing development, and helping endangered species.